Hello, it's 2025. It's Monday night, January 6th, 2025. It's 9 p.m. on the East Coast of the United States, 6 p.m. on the West Coast, 8 a.m. in Singapore, 12 noon in Sydney, Australia, and we're here where I'm sitting in Northeast Minneapolis. It's 8 p.m. Central Time. I'm Jim Peters, and welcome to another edition, the first edition of 2025 of Jim Peters at Night. I hope you guys had a nice holiday. I did. The weather here has been weird as usual in Minnesota. We do not have any. I'm addressing the camera. Hi, how you doing? Nice to see you. We don't have any snow. We had snow just before Christmas, about a half a foot, and then between Christmas and New Year's, it got unusually warm in the 40s here. So basically, after a week of that, all the snow melted. Now the temperature's back down to almost zero. So in the park, in Logan Park, down the street from our offices, our studio here at Broadway and Central, they have the skating rinks up, 3 of them, and people are skating and people are playing hockey, but there's no snow on the ground. It's really weird. It's cold here. Yeah, I mean, I think last night it was 3 degrees or something like that. I was out today. It was about 15. Excuse me. Those of you watching, and also let me bring that up too. Those of you watching, you're not listening anymore only because we're off of Blog Talk Radio. They're going out of business at the end of this month, and we got off in January. And I would also like to, apologize to you folks because we were supposed to do a show. Our last show of the year was supposed to be Thursday night, December 19th, and we're all queued up to do that. And Santa Claus was coming on. I'm not kidding, he really was. And about a hour before airtime, live airtime, about 7 p.m. Central, I got like deathly ill. I don't know what the deal was. I was really afraid I was going to throw up on the microphone. It was that bad. And it was that bad until I went. So we very quickly bailed. And it was that bad until I went to bed that night. And I slept and I woke up on Friday morning and I felt just fine. I don't know what the hell happened. But that's my story. I'm sticking to it. So we missed that show too, and it was going to be our last live show on Blog Talk Radio, and where we take phone calls. First of all, we hadn't been able to connect to Blog Talk Radio in a good 2 weeks, and I'm assuming that's because they are shutting down, so I'm not even trying anymore. I also promised you folks that I would have a new telephone number system set up by the time we got back today. I do not. We're still working on it, and there's reasons why I don't, which I can't tell you. But and at some point we are going to restore the green screen background we had going on here and all the graphics and stuff like that. We're going to. I can't tell you why we dumped them. I will be able to tell you at some point, regardless of what happens here. But I can't tell you right now. So anyway, that's what we got going on here. Otherwise, you'll notice if you're watching, and everyone is, I got a giant head. It's huge. It's covering up the picture, the visual of all my prescription drugs on the shelf behind me. Here, there you go. See that? Right. You don't want to see that crap. You don't, because I'm old. I'm really freaking old. So we got it going on. Now. My wife hates it when I use this, but I've decided this is going to be the catchphrase for the show. Yeah, I've been wondering for a long time, okay, if I have t-shirts and mugs made, what am I gonna put on them? I've been thinking about that. No one wants to see my picture. No one wants to see that, but you know what we're gonna put on? Like, we've got it going on. That's what it's gonna be, because I went to Christmas with the family, and my niece brings her boyfriend Ted. And now, they just moved in together, and my niece tells me that Ted now is saying that all the time too. So that's the catchphrase. We got it going on, and now you know. So we're gonna do a solo show tonight. That's because I like to do them on Monday because there's a lot of news over the weekend. But I've been collecting news now we've been off the air for 2.5 weeks. So it's important that we actually get to stuff. I can't not collect the news. I mean, it's kind of the point now where I wake up every morning. The first thing I do for the first 2 hours is go through the news. That's the first thing I do, and I can't not do it. It's a habit at this point. I won't even call it a habit. I call it almost an obsession. Like, I need to know what's going on. And that's one of the reasons I'm doing this, because I want to impart this to you. Now, Dan Bongino, he does about an hour every day on his podcast, and that's great. And he does a fantastic job. And he's really obsessed with politics. Me, I don't know. I'm obsessed with everything. That's my problem. I mean, I had to cull through all the stuff I collected over the last 2 weeks just to come up with. I probably have like 90 minutes worth of stuff here. I'll probably peter out around an hour because it's really weird. When I started doing this about 4 or 5 years ago, I started noticing. I was looking at what other people were doing in the podcast space, the visual podcast space, and I started to notice that almost all these podcasts are almost exactly an hour, usually about 1 or 2 minutes either way. And that's how I knew they weren't being repurposed by radio, because if you're on the radio, you have to hit a postmark, and they're exactly the same time every day. But these things were like, like Bongino, he'd do about 59 minutes one day, an hour and one, or an hour 2 minutes the next day. And I'm wondering, well, why is that? That's interesting. And the reason is because after you've done this for a while, for whatever reason, 1 hour seems to be exactly the right amount of time. And I don't know how to explain that. Now, if we were taking calls, it'd be longer than that. I mean, we've done several shows that have gone 2 hours, and up till now, because of Blog Talk Radio, that was the maximum we could do, but we're not going to be there anymore, so we could go even longer. But we're not taking calls tonight. However, I do want to point out we are still taking voicemails, and I was going to put the voicemail banner up, and I forgot to do that. The telephone number here. Hold on just a second. You hold on just a second. We're going to do. We can do this. We got it going on. We do. We got it going on. We can do this. All right. So now you can avoid the 563-999 number. That's not good. But the text number 408-458-5088, that still works. And I got it set up, and you can text me right now on the spot if you're watching this live. And you're watching it live if it's 9 p.m. Eastern, or it'll be 9:07 right now, or 8 p.m. Central, or 7 p.m. Mountain, or 6:07 Pacific. So there you go. That's what we got. That's what I got. I got yeah. So yeah, we had all that stuff going on. I went out this afternoon. My friend, the finance director, he called me and said, "Well, there's this place in uptown Minneapolis that's been rated the best cinnamon rolls in America, and anyone who knows me knows I love pastry. So, and and I'm fat, and I shouldn't love pastry, but I love pastry. So he said, let's go. Let's check it out." Now, I remember now, after being this place, I was there like 20 years ago. I had been there, but I hadn't been there in a long time. I'm going to give the place a shout out. It's called Isles Buns. That's Isles, Isles, as an island, because it's by Lake of the Isles at 28th and Hennepin. And the cinnamon rolls are fantastic. They're great. And usually on the weekend, I've been told that on weekends there's a line out the door to get into this place. It's Monday afternoon, and we did not have a line, but even at Monday afternoon, this little restaurant was pretty full. So we had a good time. And I bring that up because my friend and I talked about something. He's in finance, about I don't know if you're following this, and this is a good way to start this out. He knows this. He said, confirmed that's the reason I brought it up. He confirmed what I was saying was apparently, well, not true, because it's a prediction, but he says there are a lot of people in finance who think this, that a lot of people are saying the bond market is indicating that we're going to have a huge stock market crash or major recession here shortly. And the reason I asked him about this is because I know a little bit about the stock market. I know almost nothing about the bond market at all. And I think we have to have Murray Sabrin, our economist extraordinaire, on here to explain this to us at some point. But he said, yes, it's true. The bond market is acting weird, and there's a lot of people who are saying it is pointing to the demise of the economy in general. So that's going to be really interesting. He's not certain he agrees, but he said, yeah, my observation was cogent and particular. So that'll be interesting to see if that happens. It's gonna, this thing with, okay, so Trump was formally sworn in today, or certified as the winner of the election, and everyone, really, are you done talking about January 6, 2021? Are you done? Can you finish this? People are saying Sonny Huston got on The View and said it was worse than the Holocaust. It's like, this is just, make this stop, and also this is the really terrible thing. And I actually put this in the description of the show tonight because it's really bad. I just think this guy's just a weasel. Merrick Garland Garland, the Attorney General of the United States, he got on the horn today talking about how terrible January 6, 2021 was. And he said that 5 police officers lost their lives in the line of duty that day. That is completely, utterly false. That's a falsehood. It's a lie. No police officers lost their lives in the line of duty or actually on that day at all on January 6, 2021. The next day, one of them had a heart attack. That's true. And like 6 months later, 2 of them committed suicide. That's true. But the way this works and the reason he can get away with that sort of legal bullshit is because those people were grandfathered in to getting or their relatives or descendants were to getting benefits, death benefits because they were at January 6th. So technically, those heart attacks and suicides counted as in the line of duty. It's crap. The only person who lost their life on January 6th was Ashley Babbitt. That's it. And she was a protester. She was unarmed. Now, okay, there was a riot. Yes, there was. About 2,000 people stormed the Capitol, if you want to call it that. My impression is, no, I don't know if they have a statistic for this. And also, it should be pointed out the January 6th committee, which was of the Senate, which was a complete and utter sham of the House, because there were no Republicans were not allowed to call any witnesses. They determined that about 2,000 people there were literally 500,000 people at that rally. Now that's gotten lost in this. That rally on the Capitol was the largest rally ever held on the Capitol Mall ever, even way bigger than the one that Martin Luther King attended in 1963, where he gave the "I Have a Dream" speech. There were 500,000 people that were at the rally at the Capitol Mall on January 6, 2021, 500,000. Of that, 2,000 of them entered the Capitol building. Now, when I say entered, some of them broke in. Some of them were just let in. And there's no statistic, as far as I know, about how many were just lollygagging and being tourists and let in, and how many actually broke in. Yeah, windows are broken. People were shoving. That's true. There was a riot, and you can't deny that. But the thing I don't understand is, or the thing I don't think other people understand, is why that riot happened. First of all, it had nothing to do with Trump at all. Now, and you may think saying I'm crazy. No, I'm sticking to that. It's not just that Trump didn't call for this riot. He had nothing to do with it. I still insist that if Trump wasn't there, and actually it would have been, if he was really smart, he shouldn't have showed up. He shouldn't have. If Trump wasn't there, that riot would have happened anyway. It had nothing to do with anything he said. It's just you had a whole bunch of people who look back on 2020 about the fact that there were riots in 20 American cities, $2 billion of damage, and 20 people lost their lives in those. And those people and then they thought that the election was basically stolen. I still think there's a lot of evidence to indicate that's true. And even if you don't believe that about the fact that that the election was stolen, it was definitely quote unquote rigged, in the sense that there was a lot of legal maneuvering that was done to push Trump out of the way. About the fact there were suddenly, because of COVID measures, emergencies, there were people. There were mail-in ballots that were illegally unauthorized, so that people could get mail-in, that were done unconstitutionally or either without legislative approval. All sorts of weird stuff like that. It's supposedly in the name of COVID. And I contend, and a lot of other people too, that if that stuff hadn't have happened, if there were regular, ordinary presidential election rules, Trump would have won. I do think that. I really do. But that's kind of beside the point. That's a moot point. Like somebody said, and I've always said this also, Joe Biden ended up in the White House, so he won. That's the way this stuff works. If you can't, and this is this is a thing of against the Trump team at that time. All right, you're elected. The presidential election is the first week of November. If you can't prove in 8 weeks, if you can't prove without a shadow of a doubt that the election was cheated, you lost. That's all there's to it. Even if you were cheated, you lost. You have 8 weeks to prove it. And Rudy Giuliani, I love the guy, but the fact of the matter is he didn't prove it. And even though, and the weird thing is they had ample evidence, I think, but still, they couldn't get their shit together to present a case to the American public. So no. So Biden did win. Now, whether he, was nefarious, that's another question. We can talk about that all the time. But my point is about that. That's why people at that rally were so pissed. And if you stop and think about the fact that 2,000 people stormed the Capitol out of a 500,000, that's way less than one half of 1%. So no, and on top of that, and I don't know why this is true. I think it's because everyone who entered the Capitol Mall got frisked and scanned. There was not a single person of those 2,000 people that had a weapon on them. None. So how can you have an insurrection of the United States government when nobody has a firearm? I mean, what are they going to do? It's like, you're going to push AOC out of the way. No, it was just a stupid riot. It was not insurrection at all. And they still want to claim to this. The Democrats have a problem. They can't come to terms with why they lost. They can't. And they lost because they did a shitty job. Joe Biden is going to go down in history as a terrible president. And I think he's starting to realize this. Because a lot of other people say that basically he's like grasping at straws before he leaves. He's got exactly 2 weeks from today. Now, this guy, I've said this, James Buchanan will never be toppled as the worst president ever because he didn't cause the Civil War, but he essentially let it happen. It's a complex story, but he could have stopped the Civil War and he didn't. And for that, he's always going to be known as the worst president in history. I mean, hundreds of thousands of people died because of things he didn't do. Not so much what he did, but things he didn't do. Next to that, Joe Biden. Jimmy Carter just died. And that's another thing my friend and I were talking about over cinnamon rolls today, about the fact that people are now, because Jimmy Carter is being laid to rest, God bless his soul, he does seem like he was a very honorable man. But you can't sugarcoat the fact his presidency was a disaster. It was awful. I mean, we had like 21% interest. That we were rationing gas. You can only get gas on like Tuesdays and Thursdays, depending on what city you were in. It was like, it was the whole 4 years was absolutely awful. It was terrible. And you can't sugarcoat it. Okay, maybe he was a great guy. Maybe he made a lot of, maybe he was really good with his post presidency, but still, it was a terrible time. And I think Joe Biden did actually worse. There's the problem. Bill O'Reilly said this, my boyfriend, according to Jeff Meyer. By the way, let me announce this too right now. I won't be doing a show tomorrow, Tuesday night, or Wednesday night because I have to go and attend to my 100-year-old mother. It's a long story, but I'm spending a couple days with her. So we're coming back on Thursday, and Jeff Meyer will do his monthly meeting here with us. And he's the CEO and publisher of Calling News. But the thing is, as he has said, as he calls Bill O'Reilly my boyfriend, but I'm usually ahead of O'Reilly. I don't know if O'Reilly. I don't think O'Reilly knows who I am, and that's fine. I did think about emailing him because I have said, a little prediction here again, that basically all of Trump's appointment picks, especially the cabinet picks, are going to pass, including Pete Hegseth. And O'Reilly was saying he didn't think Pete Hegseth was going to make it, but I've been predicting it since the beginning that he will. Now, John Thune today, the Senate Majority Leader, he has said that it looks like Hegseth has the votes to pass, and I think he does. The only person I thought wasn't going to get in was Matt Gaetz, and not because of the scandals per se, but there's another thing about Matt Gaetz, and I brought this up with Jennifer Oliver O'Connell. She agreed with me, guest here from Red State, about the fact that Matt Gaetz just isn't very well liked. He apparently is personally kind of a jackass. And for that reason alone, I've never met the guy. I've never talked to him. He's never been on the show, never interviewed him, nothing. I don't know that. I'm just getting the second and third hand about what I hear. But people do not like this man. And for that reason alone, I thought he was not going to be confirmed. Regardless of any scandal that's going on or sex with underage girls or any of that stuff. Now, and that stuff's terrible. But still, apparently the guy's just not well liked. I don't know if it's just he's been brusque with a lot of people. So I actually predicted he was the only one that wouldn't get in, but he quit. So that's a moot point. So at any rate, so uh I'm talking about Pete Hegseth and getting in here. And how did I get to that? Oh yeah. Yeah, just blah 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 blah. This is good. And this is the reason that um uh w- um oh, what's his name? Oh god, now I was gonna say Charles Gasparino, but no, he's the guy that my friend and I were talking about. So, at any rate, um, yeah, okay. So how about this? It was just Christmas, and now scientists in Turkey have just announced that they think they found Saint Nicholas's tomb. It's been lost to history for like 1,500 years, but they think they found it in Turkey, buried. Next to a church, next to the church of Saint Nicholas, where he was, where he was the pastor. So yeah, Santa Claus's tomb. They think they found it. Thought you want to know that. Oh, we were talking about the fact that Joe Biden is going to go down in history as the second worst president ever, and he will. There's just no doubt about this. Oh, and the reason is because you look at Carter, you could make an argument that Carter was dealt a bad hand when he entered office. Now he did nothing to improve it, and he had some bad luck. And he also, and my thing about Jimmy Carter is I've always thought, for whatever reason, his judgment was horribly bad. There's decisions he made that people talk about, Trump talks about common sense. I do not think that people from any common sense point of view would have made those decisions. So I mean, but the problem with Biden is that he brought all of his own BS onto himself. It was like he caused it all. It was, that's the one thing, so yeah, we had terrible inflation and no run out of gas, all this sort of stuff. But under Carter, you can make an argument that he didn't actually cause a lot of that stuff. He couldn't fix it. But Biden actually caused virtually everything he messed up. Inflation, a first year economics student at any reasonable college could have told Joe Biden and his crew that if you're going to print money like that so recklessly, you're going to end up with inflation. And of course, that was transitory, all this sort of stuff. It's just BS. It's just bullshit. And he could not accept it. Then there's Afghanistan. He said it went spectacularly well. Now he said, a lot of people think we shouldn't have gotten out. That wasn't the problem. The problem wasn't that we got out. Trump wanted us to get out too. Most people in America want us to get out. It's how he did it. It's how they executed it. That was the terrible thing, not that they actually got out. I I've been sitting here for the last 4 years trying to figure out if Biden's problem is that he is cognitively impaired from old age or if he's just a delusional jackass. I've started to come to the conclusion it's the latter. And from what I hear more and more people saying that seems to be the case, that the guy, it's not that the guy, although he is losing his mind, there's no doubt about it. That's not really the problem. The problem is he's always been this way. He's someone talking about the fact about him being so dishonest. You have to understand the previous two times he ran for president, both times he ended up dropping out of the race because of plagiarism. He plagiarized people's speeches. He almost got kicked out of law school for plagiarizing a paper. This has been a common theme through his entire life. He copies people. He just copies them, and he doesn't seem to mind the fact that people notice. And not only people notice, he is actually like it's been detrimental to him, and he just keeps on doing it. Uh, you got to give the special type of balls, actually. You know, it's like you get caught plagiarizing a line over and over again, and you don't seem to learn. You just keep on doing it. I think he thinks he's above it, you know. And then look at his son. I mean, the interesting thing is, I've always said not always, you can largely tell the character of a person by how their children turn out. And in credit where credit's due, Bo Biden was apparently a very honorable guy, very cool. His son Hunter is a piece of human garbage. He's trash. So And and Ashley, well, apparently Ashley's messed up because, there's intimations that her father, had sexual relations with him or some kind. It might not have been penetration, but there, I mean, that in her diaries that have been found, she intimated that sort of stuff. It's really terrible. These people are really terrible. They're terrible people. They really are. And I just find it hilarious because he keeps talking about decency. You know, well, all right. We're gonna go on to a commercial here because that was depressing, wasn't it? We'll be back in a minute. Stay tuned, please. Hi, all. I want to talk to you about Conch News. You've probably heard me talk about this before, but if you're a news junkie, you should try this out. Conch News is a news aggregator. Now, there are plenty of news aggregators on the web, but Conch News is different than all the rest, and here's how. Most other news aggregators will lump the top stories from each news source under that news source. The top 10 stories, like, for example, from Fox News, Breitbart, the New York Post, etc. What Conch News does is it sends its servers out onto the web to over 75 different news sources every 3 hours. And yes, this is an automated process, but in this case, that's actually a good thing. And collects the latest stories from said 75 sources and then lays them out on its own front page in the order they were posted, regardless of the source. So you see the latest stories at the top of the front page, regardless of where they're from. And this is all free to you. You don't need to log in. You don't need to subscribe, register, nothing. It's completely free. All you have to do is go to conch.com to check it out. That's conch.com, CONK.com, conch.com, Conch News. Part 2 of Jim Peters at Night. I am Jim Peters. It's Monday night, September 6, 2025. I'm still writing the year of the goat on my checks. All right, so what do I talk about here usually? You guys know. Politics and UFOs. That's my thing. And I spent a lot of time over the last couple of weeks studying both of them. And so we just ended a half an hour of really depressing talk. So now I don't know if this is depressing or not, but I find this interesting. First of all, I put this in the description of the show tonight too, about the fact that Joe Concha mentioned on Fox News over the weekend that his kids have now named the drones that are flying over his house every night in New Jersey. They have names for them. I don't remember what they are, but he mentioned a few. So this has been really interesting. My same friend I had cinnamon rolls with this afternoon, he asked me, he said, what's going on with all this stuff? And, I mentioned, matter of fact, I got to mention, I can't, and I did not regurgitate this for this evening. There's quite a few things that these drones could be, but one of them, and I'm starting to think there might be something to this, and that is it might be a precursor or experiment to find out how people react to stuff in the sky they don't know what it is. And that would be, of course, I'm alluding to extraterrestrials. And you go back to 1938, I think it was, when Orson Welles ran his radio broadcast, The War of the Worlds, which was a radio play that was presented as a news broadcast. Every time they went to commercial and came back from commercial, they put up a disclaimer saying, audio, of course, saying that this was a stage play and not a real newscast. Didn't matter. People on the panic for this has been overblown, but on the East Coast, especially in that radio play in H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds, this landing happens in New Jersey, and in New Jersey and southern New York City, people did go nuts. That's legitimately true. Over the rest of the United States, not as much as lore has made you believe, but people in New Jersey did completely freak out, and people have used that ever since. Now that was like 85 years ago, have used that as a benchmark of the fact, well, you can't tell the public this stuff because they will freak out. I spent I did two things over the last 2 weeks that I found particularly interesting regarding this subject. I watched a documentary on Amazon Prime by James Fox, who's probably the the premier documentarian in the UFO subject matter, and the movie's called The Program. It's brand new. He's done maybe half a dozen documentaries on this subject, and there are other people who do really good documentaries too. Darcy Weir has done a few. There's a couple people. There's a woman that I find particular. I find her annoying. I do not think they're that good, but yeah, James Fox does a really good job with this. It's called The Program, and I read a book by a guy named Grant Cameron. And Grant Cameron, I don't know if he still is, but for years he was the executive director of MUFON Worldwide. He was the top guy there, and his book is called Managing Magic. And I've talked to you about this before. One of the reasons I find this subject so fascinating, besides the fact, yeah, maybe people coming here from other planets, which is fascinating in itself, but I'm really fascinated by the political machinations that go on in Washington and in our federal government and in the military regarding this subject. And they're numerous and plenty. Now, Louis Alessandro came out with his book, what was it, in September, called Imminent, where he talks about the fact that he basically says straight out that the government's covering evidence of the fact that the extraterrestrials are here. And my last talk with Jazz Shaw, rest in peace, Jazz, who passed away on October 30th on the show, was about that book. I read it very quickly. I mean, basically crammed it over a weekend. There's never been a current or former government official that's ever come out and said so plainly what Alessandro said in that book about the fact that basically he said, yeah, the extraterrestrials are coming here. We have crashed spacecraft, and he also said another thing I'll get to in just a minute. But at any rate, that's the reason I'm really fascinated by the interplay between the subject matter and the politics involved. So, and that's what both this movie by James Fox and this book by Grant Cameron are about. Managing Magic is about the government's response to the UFO situation. Now, Cameron's kind of thinks the same thing I've been thinking for a long time, and this is the only thing that Jazz and I ever really disagreed on, although it was a nuanced disagreement, and that is as much as I talk about this, and I've said that one of my missions here with this program is that you should get used to the fact that extraterrestrials are coming here. I mean, there's so much evidence to indicate this at this point that it's a virtual certainty to me. So, I mean, I can't even. Excuse me. Sorry about that. I can't even touch the surface of the amount of stuff I've read and talked to over the last 20, 30 years about the subject matter. It's so obvious that the government has this evidence. I called it an open secret. Now, my friend, the finance guy I had lunch with today, he's involved in defense contract work. And he says that, like, for example, he told me that all the people in the defense industry that he talks to say, no, that stuff is real, but it's all ours. Now, actually, I have made the same assertion that stuff that off the Nimitz and the Roosevelt that these pilots keep seeing, these tic tac things flying around and all that sort of stuff. I also say they're ours, but the reason we have those things is because we reverse engineered crashed extraterrestrial spacecraft. That's what I think. So in my mind, it's both of those things are simultaneously true. But Cameron talks about the fact that he mentions in this book, he mentions 64 reasons why the government shouldn't disclose. You know, the thing in the UFO community is this thing called disclosure. is somebody's waiting for the president to stand up on podium and say, "Yeah, the extraterrestrials have been visiting Earth." So somebody's waiting for that. Cameron makes the argument, and actually even James Fox does more obliquely in this movie, in this documentary. But Cameron lists in his book 64 reasons why the government shouldn't and won't do that, and they're very compelling. And that's what but Jazz and I always talked about too. I always said, even though I'm here talking about this and telling you that I think the extraterrestrials are coming here and that they're real, well, I don't know if the government should announce it. I don't. I think it could be more harm than good. And once the genie gets out of the bottle, you can't really put it back in. Not to mention the fact there are obvious national security implications of this too, which is the primary reason they probably shouldn't. But someone said, well, yeah, you could separate the fact that the national security stuff, the technology stuff, from the fact that just the extraterrestrials are coming here, and you could, and maybe somebody will. Now, but as far as the drones in New Jersey and all across the United States are concerned, it might be. There's a lot of people have thought that what's been happening in the last few years is a conditioning program to get the government to get the public used to the fact that this is happening. And Cameron announces this in his book, and I think he's right about the fact that you could do this without the government actually announcing anything, which is probably the preferred way to do it. For example, like in the movie Independence Day, when flying saucers are all over Manhattan and you look up and you see them. I mean, if that happened in real life, what are you going to do? I mean, or what are you going to assume, that those are ours? No. It's like, no, we're not building spacecraft a mile wide. We're not doing that. That's something we simply is beyond what we can't do. If they, being the ETs, flood our airspace with enough of these spacecraft and enough of them see them, at some point it's going to become common knowledge. And Cameron makes the point that might be the way to do it, to save the government face. There's also a lot of legal reasons the government won't. When I say the government, I specifically mean the military. So in Fox's movie, I can't remember who said this. Someone brought up a really good point, and I think this is important to remember, and that is the military in the United States the Pentagon can keep enormous amounts of secrets really good, really well. Congress, not at all. Which is one of the reasons that nobody in the military wants to talk to Congress about this, because Congress, their assumption is Congress cannot keep a secret, and they can't, because there are elected representatives, and it's not their job to keep a secret. You could ask them to keep a secret; it doesn't mean it's going to happen. Whereas people in the military are literally threatened with 10 years in jail if they say something they've sworn not to talk about, which is the reason you never get to hear this stuff on the record. That's the reason. There's hundreds of people. I mean, all these guys, both these guys, James Fox and Grant Cameron, allude to the fact there's hundreds of people they've talked to off the record in the military that confirm all this stuff. And they all have similar stories, and a lot of times they don't know each other. And so there's just a deluge of people. And that's one of the reasons that I and many other people think this stuff's real, is because at some point you just don't get hundreds of people talking about the same thing. They can't all be on the same page, but some sort of coordinated disinformation effort. That's not going to happen. You can maybe get a few of them, but not that many. So anyway, Cameron talks about the 64 reasons that this shouldn't be happening. But like I said, one of the things that's going on here, that may be going on, is they're trying to condition the public to the fact that this is real. And so in that sense, it could be a conditioning effort that lasts years. Now, I'm almost hesitant to bring this up, but and this is an interesting point of view, because of the fact this deadline, there's a lot of people that predict crap, and then like that. Well, there's a prediction out right now that there's going to be a major UFO event in the United States in the next 6 weeks. I actually don't think that's going to happen. But here's another thing that might happen. for years, people have been saying that in 2027 or 2028, there's going to be a big, huge something going on with the UFO stuff. Those years, but the thing is, this is going back to like 2015 that people have been saying that it's the same years that it's been posted to people in the military saying in 2027 or early 2028 something's going to happen, and it could be because there's a bunch of non-disclosure agreements that are expiring then. I mean, uh, there's a whole bunch of people have gone on off the record saying that Roswell was real and that there were 4 dead bodies. Or in fact, the real amazing thing is that supposedly there was 1 live body, and that ET lived at Wright Patterson Air Force Base for about 5 years before it passed away. That's common knowledge in the UFO community, whether that's true or not. I mean, this stuff gets increasingly unbelievable, but if you had a crash, why is that unbelievable? And then people say, well, how can you have a crash if you can fly across the galaxy faster than the speed of light? Why would you crash on Earth? And I'm saying, well, that's the very reason you would. Because although this is an interesting statistic. You stop and think about this. In modern commercial aviation, I'm talking about commercial aviation where you fly to see your grandmother in Baltimore. We lose here in the United States 1 aircraft every 2 years. Matter of fact, now the last thing I heard, I think the last time we lost an aircraft in the United States, I mean, they crash, but they generally don't crash in the U.S. There's just this recent thing that happened over in, what was it, Kuala Lumpur, so I can't even remember, Indonesia or something like that, where it turned out that was probably error of the Russian air defense system that shot this commercial plane down. But my point is that's not American. In the United States, we lose a plane on average, 1 plane every 2 years. And if I'm right, now it's been 4 years since we've lost one. Okay, so you think about this. There's 10 million commercial flights in the United States every year. There's 25,000 of them every day. These are jets taking off, like from Grand Forks, flying to Bismarck, all sorts of crap, flying everywhere. They're flying everywhere. There's 25,000 of those flights just in the U.S. every day, 10 million a year, and we lose on average 1 airplane in every 20 million flights. So you're talking about how safe this is, and I have to I actually think this is almost unbelievable because the technology involved here is old and actually kind of prehistoric. We are pushing these airplanes through the air so they fly. There's no hovering. They don't stop. They can't do any of that stuff. We push them through the air, and they have wings just like birds, and they fly. Right, and we only lose 1 airplane out of every 20 million flights. And so you think about if you're going to use that benchmark about the fact that we can do that with primitive technology, and these people, I'll call them people, are flying from other planets to get here and then crashing. I hate to say that, but there must be a shitload of them actually flying here. Now, supposedly that's true. That our atmosphere is just teeming with UFOs, and nobody sees them because they cloak themselves for all sorts of reasons. But I mentioned this before too. People are not only seeing more and more of them. The people who actually catch this are local news crews from local TV stations. They go out, they set up they're setting up some shot in a barn somewhere for something, some bar dance or something, and somebody leaves the camera on the ground or on a tripod pointing straight up in the air because they're fiddling with it, and they get back to the station. They're going to edit the footage, and then somebody said, well, what's that? And apparently this happens in the United States on almost a daily basis, that somebody catches one of these, something flies across the screen, they slow it down, they realize that it's a metallic object with no wings, that these people are picking this up all the time. And now, of course, I don't have to tell you, we all have a camera in our pocket at this point, but most people aren't looking up at the sky or filming the general sky just to do it, but local news crews, they do it inadvertently to test the equipment or while they're setting up and all that sort of crap. And I don't know how many commercial television stations there in the United States, especially that have newsrooms, probably 400 or 500, and they're sending crews out every day, and they get that they're getting this all the time. This has become a common occurrence. And nobody really reports on this very much because they don't know what to make of it. But there's tapes constantly. A lot of this stuff did get posted online. People don't believe it. I mean, the one other problem with having uh, uh, a camera in your pocket is that it's really easy to fake video, and a lot of this stuff is faked. I mean, it's like I know that. I'm not that down the rabbit hole to know that I'd say the majority of it is fake. Excuse me. There's just like a video about Nancy Pelosi came to Congress to vote on the certification today, and she came in with a walker. Now, the really funny part is if you've been online today, there's especially one in particular. Somebody ran this through an AI program and came up with her falling on the walker. Now, that actually didn't happen. That's a fake video, and I can kind of tell looking at it, although it's pretty funny. It really is. That didn't happen, but she did actually come into Congress using a walker. She did, and this is the same woman who says that Donald Trump is unfit for office, and she's 84 years old, by the way. I thought you should know that. She's been in Congress, I think, 47 years or something like that. I'm not kidding. Like give it up, woman. These people have to step down. Even like Chuck Grassley from Iowa, who's 92 or 93 years old and still sharp as a tack. The guy's still got it completely together. I don't care. Too late. Go home. It's like you've been there too long. And it's not. That's the thing. It's not even a matter of age per se. It's how long you've been there. I mean, we need term limits. We actually do. I don't know hardly anyone who's against term limits. My friend Don Zora comes on the show regularly. He said, you give people, what do you say? You give them 6 terms in the 6 2-year terms in the House and 3 6-year terms in the Senate. That'll do it. And then you let people do both. So in other words, if you can get elected to the House and to the Senate, both, you can make a good 20, 25-year career out of it. But that's it. We have these people that have been in Congress forever. Mitch McConnell, he's been there like 40 years. I mean, I can go down the list here. This is not good. So, at any rate, and why did I bring that up? I brought that up because of the way it's easy to fake video on anything, especially now with AI. You can tell the AI what you want it to do, and it will construct the video. And so there's this video of Nancy Pelosi literally falling down while on her walker. It's hilarious, but it's not real. And it's very, very easy now to fake video. That's one of the bad parts about having a camera in your pocket. But the thing is, this is being filmed constantly, So yeah, there's a prevailing theory that it's not just a few aliens coming here. That they're teaming, they're all over the place, and we basically don't see them. And then when we do see them, nobody knows, nobody cares, or nobody cares, one or the other, So I don't know. This is a very interesting thing we got going on here. I don't know if anything's going to happen in 27, 28. I obviously don't know, but we do seem to be heading towards something, and I don't know if that's. I don't think the disclosure thing by the president standing up and telling the country that the ETs are here is actually going to happen. Not anytime soon, and probably not in my lifetime. And I'm almost 70, and I got I don't have that much time left. I mean, my mother. I'm going to spend 2 days with my mother. She's 100 years old. She's still completely with it. Her mother lived to be 104 and was healthy until she passed away. Who knows? But I'm fat too. There's that. It's not good. It's not what I know. What I got going on here is not good at all. So yeah, do as I say, not as I do. Okay, all right. So yeah. So let me give you another thing that happened during vacation. There's a video from 1997. I don't know if you've ever seen it. Of supposedly, matter of fact, I'm not even certain it has any sound. I don't think it does. I've seen this video several times, but I've never heard any sound with it. So I think that there's no sound to it. There's a silent video of supposedly an extraterrestrial being interviewed by a bunch of army personnel. And I gotta admit, I always thought this film was fake. I really did. It's like, I don't know why. I say I have a pretty good nose for this stuff. I've been in video production for a long time. I thought this was kind of fake, but I have no proof of that either. Now, this is not the alien autopsy video from 1995. I'm talking about that, and I want to talk about that for a second too, just to prove or disprove my my case here. When that video came out and the first time I watched it, I thought it was very obviously fake. I thought there's no way in hell this is real. I saw the hallmarks of what I considered fakeness, the fact they had to refocus the camera at inopportune times, all sorts of technical stuff I saw in that video of the alien autopsy that ran on Fox television. That I thought, this is bullshit. I really thought that's completely fake. Now, I have to tell you that over the last 30 years, I'm starting to really kind of change my mind about that a little bit, because here's the reason. People have gone through that video with a fine-tooth comb and tried to find anything that video was supposedly shot, a film shot in 1947, have tried to find anything that's congruently, any physical item that's out of place. Every single little thing in that video has been combed. Nothing's been found, and the couple things that they thought people had found, it turned out were wrong. Every single thing in that video has been verified as coming from 1947. The telephones, the clock on the wall, the doorknobs, everything. Everything in that video has been verified coming from 1947. Now, if you were planning a film, a good example, Mad Men, the television show Mad Men that was set in the 1960s. You could hire somebody and you pay them pretty big bucks and they need a little bit of staff. This was only 20 minutes. My Mad Men was 91-hour episodes to verify every single thing on screen. You could hire somebody to do that and they will pull it off. And then Mad Men, they pulled it off spectacularly. I mean, they barely made a mistake over 90 episodes. But there was no profit incentive in this film to do this. In other words, like no one's getting paid. Now, obviously, at the guy named Greg Santilli got paid by Fox News for producing the film. I don't know how much they paid him, but they did pay him. But however, you couldn't do a film like that on spec. I figure that 20-minute film, if you're going to do it the way they shot it and it was fake, it would have cost in 1995 money at least $500,000. And so that would be currently today probably $1.5 million to do that 20-minute film with that sort of detail, right? And the thing is, you don't know if you're going to see the money back. No, I don't think anybody would put up the money to do that. And on top of that, you need a big production. Now, Santilli said, this is really weird, and I'm getting so off topic, but I'm going to just continue here anyway. Santilli eventually said the film was fake. He did say that. He said they shot it in his apartment. No bullshit. They did not. They did not shoot it in his apartment. The lighting was, you don't have lighting like that in an apartment. And you can't, there's just no way. He did not shoot that in his apartment. And I cannot go on here about the reasons I know this, but based on the spacing and the lighting and all that stuff, it's plainly obvious to me he did not shoot it in his apartment. If that was shot, it was shot on a soundstage or in a real room like that. That's the other thing. As time has gone on, I'm starting to think more and more that film is real. Because, like, for example, because of the very reasons I said, I don't think anybody could afford to fake it. It looks fake to me. It still does. But I don't understand the economic rationale of how anybody could do it. Now, getting back to this 1997 film it's a silent video of this alien being interviewed by Army personnel. All right, same thing here. I thought this was fake. I've seen the video several times. I watched it carefully. I thought the whole thing was fake. It was a good fake. Excuse me, what I thought. God, I'm a burping machine. But at any rate, I thought it was a fake. Okay, so fast forward to present day, and this happened just before the holidays, and I reported on just after. This is from the latest UFO sightings.net. They the latest UFO sightings assigned 4 remote viewers to try to reconstruct this event. Now, this is the way this works. Now, remote viewing is highly contentious, but there's people who worked with the military and the CIA who said they basically proved it works. And not only that, there's another factor here too. And Luis Elizondo talked about this, wrote a chapter about this in his latest book, Eminent, which I highly recommend you read, about the fact that Elizondo says the people who are first of all, not only does remote viewing supposedly work, and I'm going to give you an example or a definition in just a second. But they say this is the part I find even more unbelievable. They say anybody can basically be trained how to do it. They say it's basically like singing. Some people definitely can sing better than others, but pretty much anybody can be shown or trained how to do it. That's what they say. So there's like 3 people. There was a project that run by the CIA in the 1970s called Project Stargate. And what they did and what remote viewing is you can sit in a room and you can actually supposedly project your mind to another location on Earth or actually even in space. And a couple other people have supposedly done that anywhere and actually view a scene. And not only that, you aren't necessarily even constricted by where you're going, but even the time you're going. You can move in both time and space. Now, there are 3 people in particular that the CIA found who were particularly good at this. Now, you're thinking, well, this is all bullshit. This sounds like crap. But the problem is the military want to develop this because it gives them a leg up on their enemies. Like you could actually, like for example, and apparently people did do this. They would remote view like a armory installation in Russia, or or a nuclear processing facility in like Iran or something like that. That's the reason the military wanted to do this, and apparently it works. There, this program is now it has expired. At least the original one. I assume they're still doing this because I do not think the government would give up something that they say actually works. But like I said, the real amazing thing here is they say that anybody can be trained to do this. Luis Elizondo said he was trained how to do this. He said he didn't think he could do it, and basically anybody can do it reasonably well, supposedly. I buy the fact that it can be done more than I buy the fact that anybody could do it. I have a very hard time with that. It's like if this is some sort of clairvoyant talent people have, maybe they have a talent for it. But I have a hard time buying that anybody can be trained to do it. But that's what the line is. And Elizondo said that in his book, and he said he was trained himself and that he can do it. Okay, fine. All right. So what this latest UFO sightings.net did is they got 4 confirmed successful remote viewers and assigned them the task of apparently they know when and where this video was shot. I do not know those details. I don't, but so apparently they know the time and the place that this video with the interview with the alien was shot. And they asked the 4 remote viewers to go back to that time and place and tell them what they saw. They did not tell them what was going on there. They just said to tell us what's going on at this time and place location. That's what they said. And amazingly, all 4 of the remote viewers came up with the exact same story. And the story was that is a real alien sitting there, and the government was interviewing him. And it's like, my problem, if you want to call a problem with this, is to be very difficult. And apparently they did this under controlled conditions. None of the 4 remote viewers knew each other. None of them knew what the assignment was. None of them knew anything, and they came up with the same story. All 4 of them. Then they said that the interview with the alien was real. That the alien, the extraterrestrial sitting there, who basically looks like a gray alien, that was a real gray alien. So actually, all 4 of them said there were actually 2 aliens in the room. but one is not on camera. So yeah, I don't know what to make of this. I don't. Now, and there's one other thing too that was written on John Sexton at Sahad Air wrote about this over the vacation too. Here's another story too about the fact that I haven't seen this. There's a video that's apparently started on TikTok, but has been making the rounds on the internet about the fact that there's certain autistic children that seem to have the gift of telepathy. So like they have like they will take their mothers and put them in separate rooms, and the mothers will like write out something, and in the video you can see plainly that the autistic child can recite what the mother's writing being in a visual contact with it. And Sexton says, he says, they're either this is real or they're pulling some giant scam here. There's an enormous amount of cheating, and that's I don't know. I don't know what to make of any of this. The remote viewing thing is so ensconced now in military lore. I won't even say alien lore, military lore, that it's pretty much now an accepted fact that that people can do this and that it works. And I know you may have a very hard time believing that, but if you can Google this, it's called Project Stargate, and you will find. I mean, if you go on the Wikipedia, they'll tell you it's bogus, but the Wikipedia doesn't buy anything. I mean, it's. I find it's just these people. They will find some quote unquote rational explanation for any sort of phenomena, no matter how weird the rational explanation is. But this thing John Sexton is writing about, it's like I don't know what to make of this either. And I haven't actually seen the videos. I've only read about this. But maybe you have. But apparently, it's like he said, either the whole thing's a complete scam or these kids actually can do this. So the reason I brought this up and the reason I bring it up in the same sentence, in the same breath, is if remote viewing is real, there's a possibility that this is true, that this would work. Possibility. I can't really say it either way because I haven't seen the videos. I haven't, virtually everybody who said they've come in contact with ETs, all the abductions experiences, like 98% of these people say that the aliens communicate with them telepathically. And which means that we must have some ability to do it that's untapped, because if they and I've thought this for a long time, that they maybe have some technological device that allows them to do it, that's either a brain implant or something like that. But the thing is, that's still wouldn't be there any reason why we could receive it and apparently do it back. That's I mean they will supposedly, the ETs have told us, or these people they've abducted, that we have this ability and just don't know how to use it. So and the things that would be autistic children children in general who would probably display this ability. It's children who seem to remember their past lives, according to Ian Stevenson. All this research they did at the University of Virginia. These children, between the ages of 3 and 5, remember their past lives, and by the time they're 6, they completely forget the whole thing. There's even the two very famous cases that Leslie Kean wrote about in her book, or was it Leslie or what's her name? Oh God, I can't remember. The book's called Surviving Death, and she used 2 examples of the hundreds and hundreds of examples that Ian Stevenson and Jim Tucker confirmed which were true. And the way this worked is that Stevenson started. I don't know how he fell into this. He started to calls from people who said, "My son or daughter keeps talking about being alive in 1872 or something like that." And so he would go and meet the children, and he would ask some very, very distinct questions, like, what was your name? Where did you live? What did you do for a living? Were you married? Did you have children? All sorts of stuff like that. And he said they would then take that information and go and try to verify it. He said it checked out 70% of the time. On 70, and he talked to like 700 kids. So I don't know, let me do some math. That would be about 500 kids out of the 700 where the information checked out. which is way. I mean, that's not even approach chance. And most of this stuff happened before the internet existed. Most of this was in the 60s and the 70s, which in this case is actually good. So there's very little chance anybody could pass this information around. You know, but that makes me think about the fact that children seem to have some sort of special ability. So anyway, getting back to these two cases that Kean wrote about in her book, was if it was her. uh, uh, Both of these kids were still alive. They both they've seen videos of themselves talking about this, but none of them, neither one of them can actually remember any of this. They don't remember anything about it. Their only touchstone is the videos and stuff that was written about them when they were small children. So I mean, so in some ways they look at that the same way anybody else does. But they can't remember it. They can't. It's like supposedly once you hit the age of 6, you forget all about this stuff. So I don't know. So it doesn't surprise me that you'd find children who would be able to do this telepathy thing. But still, it could very well be complete utter crap. It could. It's where it really. There's a lot of incentive for people to make shit up. I probably don't have to tell you that. I don't. You know. And finally, I'll leave you with this tonight. That on January 1st, 2025, was that 6 days ago, a flight took off from Hong Kong to land in LA, Los Angeles, California, and it crossed over the international date line, and it took off on January 1st, 2025, and landed in December 31st, 2024. That actually happened, a regular, ordinary scheduled flight that actually ended up landing a day before it left. Yeah, so there you go. It's like, yeah, so crazy things have happened. I want to thank you folks for listening and watching. And let me, yeah. Hi, hi, hi. I should play the camera more often, especially now. Yeah, so I am, I like I said, we're not doing a show either tomorrow, Tuesday night, or Wednesday night because I'm attending my mother. Thursday night, Jeff Meyer will be here, and we'll have some guest books for tomorrow for next week. And thank you for watching. Good night, Esperanza. Good night, Uncle Donnie. Good night to you, wherever you are. We'll see you on Thursday night. Take care, everybody.